So, first things first, before we get into this review, I went into this game completely blind without knowing anything about it. All I knew was it was in early access for a while, and now it's finally getting its full release. And people were calling it a Stalker clone, Stalker from Game World. They're releasing Stalker 2. That's what people were saying, it was a clone. But this game, Chernobylite, is far from that. While elements are similar and the setting is the same, the games are completely different, at least in my opinion. Chernobylite is made by the Farm 51, who made Get Even, which was released back in 2017, so long ago. I played this on PC with mouse and keyboard only, and after I ran a benchmark, I set it to ultra settings with my 980 Ti. I put the VSync on, and I maintained a solid 60 FPS, aside from, loading screens. Those dip below 30 quite often, but since it's a loading screen, don't care, I'll let it have it. You get to play as Igor, a former Chernobyl scientist searching for his missing wife, and along the way, you make friends and enemies in the inhospitable Chernobyl exclusion zone, all while trying to avoid the horrors, both human and monster alike. History time! Y'all know I'm not letting you leave here without some real world lessons. To Wikipedia! So, the Chernobyl disaster was a nuclear accident that occurred Saturday, 26th April 1986. I wasn't alive then. It happened at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat. It is still considered the worst nuclear disaster in human history in terms of cost and human lives. In addition, it is one of the 2 nuclear energy accidents rated at a 7. That is the maximum severity for the International Nuclear Event Scale, the only other one being the 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster in Japan. So a large amount of energy was released suddenly and violently, and 2 explosions ruptured the number 4 reactor core and destroyed the reactor building. The reactor explosion killed 2 factory operators that were working at the time, and a massive emergency operation was started to put out the fire, stabilize the reactor, and clean up the ejected nuclear core. Model predictions with, varying values predict the total eventual death toll in the decades ahead from Chernobyl to be about 4,000 to 16,000. It's a lot of people. So what is the exclusion zone? The big bad of Stalker and of this game. It's an area that was originally extended 30 kilometers or 19 miles in all directions from the power plant, officially called the Zone of Alienation or the Exclusion Zone. And this area has largely been reverted back to forests and is now overrun with wildlife. Some sources have given the estimates from when the site could be habitable from 320 years all the way to tens of thousands of years. Nobody really knows when we can get back to living in that area. But as of 2016, 187 locals have returned and are living permanently in the zone to a certain radius. They're not right at the power plant. Now, what's the elephant's foot? The elephant's foot is the nickname for the large massive corium and other materials formed underneath the Chernobyl power plant after the accident. It remains extremely radioactive. However, its danger has decreased with time due to, the decay of radioactive compounds and a new type of fungus that is slowly eating away at it. Nature, man, she's beautiful. But it is still dangerous. Robots they have sent to survey and take pictures have soon stopped working from the radiation damage, and even being down the hallway is more radiation poisoning than most humans can take in 6 or 7 lifetimes. So what does Chernobylite look like? Chernobylite, I'm gonna be honest, I was surprised. It's an absolutely beautiful game. Again, I came in completely blind. I didn't know what to expect at all. I've never been to the exclusion zone, personally. I've watched tons of videos of urban exploration and documentaries about the incident, but I've never been there. But it feels like they've dropped you smack dab into the center of the exclusion zone from the very first mission you can start doing on your own, where you can really start to explore. There are some noticeable quote-unquote problems, small annoyances, but it's a video game. I expected these. Sometimes characters will clip through the doors, or You close a door on a character and the arm will stick through or the gun will stick through, or bodies will clip through the stairs, and then when you interact with them, they, go crazy and go all over the place. That happened maybe 3 times in my entire playthrough, so it's not crazy, but it is noticeable when it happens. And while you're out exploring in this beautiful world, sneaking, gathering materials, you feel the isolation, the unease, the nature taking over man's ruins. This game has done that delicate balance of, this is a post-apocalyptic, quote-unquote, this is a Fallout zone, but people are still here. They've done it, that balance just splendid. The Farm 51 has stated that they did use 3D scans of the exclusion zone in addition to working off photos and, their own expertise. The detail is crafted into every nook and cranny of the zones and the maps. There are even a few classic landmarks that you might recognize, like the Duga radar array. It's a big, beautiful thing. And if you've watched any documentaries about Soviet history, Cold War history, or anything like that, you're gonna recognize exactly what it is. The UI is clean, and although the quick menu does look like a D-pad, it did not take away from the information that was being conveyed. I did have some trouble with menus, often pushing the wrong buttons because they're just kind of like unnaturally mapped on PC, but that's an easy, once you get into it, you learn it. And I'm sure you could remap it, but I didn't want to because there's just so many buttons and I didn't know what I was doing half the time. The maps are cleanly laid out, the environmental scanner is clear, and finding materials is easy with the highlighting and the different colors they use, and even the live action clips that they use in various places are so well done. The live action clips you'll often see in loading screens or in hallucinations, or like sometimes you'll come into a room and there is a projector playing. It's a little creepy because nobody was here before you. This game just is so beautiful. I had so much fun playing it. I can't overstate that. It's also a fairly big game, sitting at about 30 gigabytes right now, and that's, pre-launch, no post-launch patches, no changes, no nothing. But there's a lot to do in that 30 gigabytes. More, I feel, than some games with that file size, or even double that file size. You get training missions, and you have training missions for every skill point you unlock. And the maps are decent sized, and you can explore those maps from top to bottom. Most of the bigger buildings you see you can go into, and it's worth going into to find doors you can lockpick and clues for your simulations and the heist. All have different interiors as well. They're not just copy and paste from one building to another. Every building, even in the story missions, is designed that there's more than one way to get in. So with some patience and a little walking around, you can get into a story mission, complete it and all that, or go around the entire map without firing a single bullet. I almost said button. Without firing a single bullet. Sometimes you may run into something in those buildings. Beware. Because I didn't know this. There's some creepy dolls you'll meet if you look hard enough, and if you're exploring, you will come across them. Some of them seem to be skill point givers, at least the ones with the glowing eyes that I've met, or they're prophecy givers or warning givers. They're very creepy. Not as creepy as Angie from Resident Evil 8, but they're still creepy. At least these dolls don't move. They are worth finding, though, and the whole zone is worth going top to bottom, too. So I played this the way I would play most of these games, with the Russian voice acting and English subtitles. The subtitles were spelled correctly and scrolled in time with the voice acting. I know making a mention of that seems like a throwaway, but since it was the only link I had to know what was going on, I think the subtitles were just as important as the map in this game. The Russian voice acting was solid. Igor was a believable, desperate man, just trying to find his missing wife, and Tatiana was the standout, with the sweet, loving tones, but a hint of something underneath, something foreign, something not of this world and filled with malice. I found it hard to find a voice that did not fit in this game. There's also dialogue options. You can choose either to be a complete arse and risk losing a companion, but you'll get immense rewards. In turn, you can be nice, which is what I tried to do. I know, for those of you guys that know me, surprise, and I worked for the good of the world and my companions. You may get fewer rewards, but it may make things easier down the road. Not like a Mass Effect Paragon Renegade system, but more like a Fallout morality system, and very often you'll see, this character will like this character will not like this decision. Now, I've already said it several times, what is Chernobylite? Well, in-game Chernobylite is I think it's a type of in-game cosmic radiation-filled metal. I say cosmic because it does some weird things not of this world. It's used to teleport, craft special armors, and items to put in your base. Chernobylite, the game, is like a certain divine comedy we all know. Yes, as you go through the trials and tribulations of fighting the N.A.R., you can't help but think of one Dante Alighieri. The divine comedy is even mentioned in-game in the first, 3 missions. This is also a horror FPS with strategy and RPG mechanics. On top of that, there is also base building and crew management. There's also building in the zones you go to, from work tables, environmental modifiers that kind of stop radiation, or wormholes. There's a lot to see and do in this, 30 gigabyte game. The building isn't aggressive and in your face like some survival games, and you don't need to do it, but it will make your experiences easier later in the game if you do partake. You also have companions, or maybe a team is the best way to say it. They do missions you assign them to, and they help you with the heist. They don't join you on missions outside of the heist, though. You also have to take care of morale. That's where the team management comes in. Morale, health, psyche, all of that. And if you refuse to listen, take care, or help them with their needs, they will leave you, because you've just been bad. Random events can also happen every day. Some will happen depending on your actions in the world. Others will occur randomly, like patrols stumble across you. Companions can die, and food and supplies can go bad and you have to get rid of them. The world is there for you to carve out your own place in it. It really is. If you want to play as I did and be a sneaky snake, you can, and it pays to play that way, at least at first. It saves you ammo, which is kind of scarce unless you have a revolver and you want to use the revolver, but once you find your shotgun and your other stuff, you don't really use the revolver anymore. It also saves you from having to use rations and anti-rad as well, but if you want to go guns a-blazing, baby girl, you can, although the consequences can be severe. The monsters, both human and Chernobylite, are running around and just waiting for you to slip up. The biggest reason to be sneaky, again, at least at first, you can play the way you want to, is to avoid conflicts with the N.A.R. The more you kill, the more your psyche will go down until you can get the skill point from Oliver to negate that. A low psyche will make you hallucinate, and other factors. Staying out of conflict means not only do you stay out of the N.A.R.'s radar, but the black stalker that's hunting you down as well. Chernobylite also has a heist. I've mentioned it several times. As you explore the zones, you gather clues, you run simulations, you get into memories. Once you have enough clues, team members that you've gathered, you need to gather 5, investigate and do your investigations. You get to run the heist, but the heist is the final mission, so I'm not going to spoil it for you here, because I think you should play this game. Now, how does the world treat you? You're doing all this stuff. How does the world of Chernobylite treat you? So you go out into your zones, and zones have random weather that can affect the way you play. Rain will dampen your footsteps, or radiation storms will have lightning that can strike you, not only giving you, lightning damage that you've just taken a lightning bolt, but also radiation damage too. Zones are filled with herbs, mushrooms, and other abandoned loot to pick up. It pays to explore the entire area while you have time. There's no time limit, which is nice. However, I did find the longer you stay, the more likely that the weather that helped you will turn against you. You can find enemies out in the world as well, and it may be your benefit to be nice to some of those enemies. The less you engage with those enemies, the lower the conflict areas will be. They might help you in the future. They might help you find things. They might help you stay off the radar of certain people. It pays to be nice sometimes, even if your companions may not like it. But you're the head honcho, not them. You also reach a point where the game will kill you intentionally. Imagine my surprise when that happened. It allows you to go to this astral plane where you can change decisions that you've already made, but I'll be honest, I never changed a single decision, because if I didn't like the decision, I wouldn't have picked it. It's also heavily implied that if you do, there may be some unseen consequences that can make things worse than the decisions you already made, so I just stick with my decisions. Dying. also makes you lose your goods, unless you have a special chamber in your base where you can die and you won't lose your goods and craftables. There is a detailed crafting system in this, and while, you get a few weapons, armors, and other craftable goodies, you can customize almost anything on them. Think of the Metro Exodus crafting system, how awesome that was, and refine it and add more things that you can customize. Here, almost everything can be improved. Triggers, barrels, sights, and so much more. The only thing you can't fix, upgrade, or, do yourself is your environmental scanner, which also serves as your Geiger counter. The environmental scanner sends out a pulse to find materials that'll highlight them in the world. It's kind of like, the Dragon Age pulse where it lets you find materials, but with a cooldown. The cooldown is kind of annoying. A quick hint, if you're this far into the game and the review that I'm talking about, build some lockpick makers as soon as you can, because most merchants, if a merchant even spawns on that map at the time, won't have lockpicks, and there will be at least 1 to 2 locked doors when you start the game. Nice thing is, at least I found, that the doors stay unlocked once you open them, and the same can be said for the machines you build, in the worlds to lower your radiation, wormholes, and Chernobylite spread. They'll stay in the world once you build them, and they don't leave, unless they get destroyed, which I hid mine, so mine never got destroyed. So this game, as you've probably already seen, has no crosshairs or reticles on screen, at least, like the little dots and stuff. No. You have to use the in-game sights, and they can be customized to your liking, so you can have a reticle once you're ADSing. The gunplay actually felt nice, and like it had some kick and weight to it, and where you aim is where you're gonna hit almost every single time. Funnily enough, though, like I said, I was playing sneaky, and I didn't rely on the guns a lot. I tried to only use the weapons against the monsters. The monsters are faster and they can swarm you, and I personally couldn't sneak up on them to stealth kill them like I could a regular enemy. And with the return of the good old leaning, yes, it made it easier to peek around those corners and plan my way through and not have to engage with the N.A.R. and sometimes not with the monsters. And if my whole thing was to come out of the mission with only 1 stealth kill, or no stealth kills, and using as few bullets as I could and get as many craftables as I could and avoid those radiation storms. I gotta say, Dishonored player me is so jealous of that skill right now, because I can't do it to save my life in any other game but this one. Now, while you have side missions or radiant missions, because they keep coming back over and over again, and there are missions like food supply and ammunition supply recovery and all that, while they do have time limits, main missions don't. The game really lets you tackle this at your own pace, which I was kind of surprised about. Usually the games like these don't let you, work at your own pace. It's kind of like what the game decides is the pace you go. I have found, however, the longer you take, the worse the world will get, be it radiation storms, the Chernobylite spreading and infecting things, to conflicts with the N.A.R. For me, it paid to play through and push through those first few missions and start building a crew. Doing that allowed me to, do the main missions while my crew was out there gathering the materials that before it was just me trying to find. They were able to double, triple, quadruple my production, which was nice. The crew can't do main missions for you, but you can send them out to scout a mission out, which will reduce hostile forces or may uncover something hidden when you go to do that main mission. You can even have lazy days in your base. Those days allow you to recover your health, psyche, and pass the days away. I will be honest, the base building was something I was not expecting. Like I said, I went completely blind. I didn't look at the early access anything. Didn't know what to expect with this. But this was fun. You'll need to build some machines to unlock others and to unlock certain pieces of armor or certain pieces like certain guns and stuff. But it's not in your face again. You can build little crops, you can have some air filtration, companion comforts, and ton of other things you could want in your little base. And it's not in your face. It did not give me flashbacks to Fallout 4, so that was a win in my books. Y'all know, if you've watched my reviews, retrospectives, lookbacks, whatever, I like to leave some of the not so great things towards the end of the video, and we are rapidly approaching the end. And if you've watched this far, thank you. let's have a code word. The code word would be exclusion zone. So if you watch to the end here, or if you're gonna keep watching, please do leave that in the comment section below and tell me what you think of this. Are you gonna be picking Chernobylite up? But I'm kind of stalling. Let's get to the end. So there's some small cracks in this game, but they can be filled fairly quickly. It's not a perfect game, but I had fun, and that's all that matters to me. And I know that's going to be all that matters to a lot of people. So you'll never get to see characters' faces in games. And that can be explained away as you're in exclusion zone, you need a mask. I think it serves the bigger purpose of not having to animate the faces and lips and etc. and all that. You'll only see the faces in portraits with the dialogue. Does not mean the game is missing animation, far from it, but there's no facial animation, which will probably allow them to focus on a few other things and getting the world so beautiful. I mean, you don't have to animate the faces moving, which can take up a lot of time, and you get to craft the world into something more beautiful. I'll take it. Secondly, if you're not a fan of jump scares, there are quite a few here. Right from the start, there are about 2 or 3 heart-stopping moments. The game is pretty good at not relying on jump scares too often, unless your psyche is low, and then you'll start to hallucinate, and watch out, baby, because they can be startling. But there is jump scares in here, and it's not obnoxious, but I know some people might not like that, or maybe not even know. Thirdly, it takes a while to get skill points. For me and the way I played, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the somewhat slow grind to get XP, but it was tedious. It can be a struggle to get those skill points to unlock skills. Also, while not pissing off your companions whose skills you may need. I would say for my playstyle of searching every nook and cranny, up, down, going to the areas, far corners, trying to slog through the radiation-filled areas with my gas mask on, it took me about 2 or 3 missions to get 1 skill point, and that's also with building on my base, while, you get skill points from building. It still took a while, it can be frustrating. The final problem, and probably the biggest problem I have, is the way the saves are. So, say you're in the middle of a zone or whatever, and you hit save, and it will say, I am saving, I have saved, here we go, baby, we're saved. It doesn't say that, but that's what my mind says. And you may leave thinking it's saved right at that exact spot in that exact moment, because it gave you no indication that it has not saved at that exact spot in that exact moment. I found 90% of the time, it may put me back to the last major checkpoint, or the last checkpoint it made if I was in an area. Like, say you got close to where enemies are, it'll save right before then. I had so many moments where I would go to sleep, wake up, build something in my base, go out into the world, start doing things, come back, it would save after I came back, build in my base again, and then save and leave, and it would put me right back to where I came back to my base. So it didn't even count any of the work I had done after that. I think it's probably one of the biggest knocks I have against this game. Instead of saying, hey, I'm saving right here, right now, say it saves at checkpoints. And especially when I can quick save, just say it saves at checkpoints. I feel like this is an easy fix, or at least it should be an easy fix, but it's the biggest knock I have, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, where did all my progress go? Yeah. So, Chernobylite is a strong entry in the Chernobyl game universe. That sounds weird to say that, but there's a lot of games kind of set in the Chernobyl game universe, or Chernobyl exclusion zone. There's a lot of games set in there. There is a free play mode, which I will admit I did not dive into much. It seems like a survival play how you want without the story, but the story was just so compelling that I had to keep playing it with the time I had. So where did this game world Stalker comparisons and Chernobylite comparisons come from? Well, set in the same area, obviously. That's enough for some people to be like, clone. There's a similar player management system like Psyche, armor, health, all that. Like the Stalker games, this has an incredible sense of loneliness and dread and edge of your seat fear in some places. Even when there is a friendly merchant on the map, like I said, if there's a friendly merchant on the map, I felt so on edge that like my shoulders would be, tense until I got back to base. Yet, even base is not fully safe sometimes. And lastly, I would personally say that the last comparison would be the monsters. The monsters you encounter, aside from the human monsters, are infected with Chernobylite or been around Chernobylite. So they are faster, they swarm you in a hurry, and that's really it. It's the setting, it's the systems that are kind of similar, it's that desolation, loneliness feeling, and the monsters. But even the monsters are different. Both games have monsters. A lot of games have monsters. These are two very different games. While Stalker was a landmark game, and Stalker 2 is probably going to be a landmark game as well, Chernobylite is a new way forward. To end this, I will say that if you like Stalker or the Metro series, you'll like this game. At least Metro, if you liked Metro Exodus, because it was a lot different than the other games, you're gonna like this. If you love survival horror RPGs like The Evil Within, you're probably gonna like this. If you love realistic shooters set in a beautiful game world, boy, have I said you're gonna like this? You're gonna like this. It does a lot that makes it different from those games I mentioned, and it does a lot with a small team that made it. I've never been to the exclusion zone, but it feels like you're dropped right into that part of the world. The ever-present sense of dread, the mystery, and the fear of the story just hook you right in. There's so much to do and see that no matter how many times you go into the zone, you're always going to be surprised by something. While the saves are frustrating, this is a fun game to fall into. The combat felt great, the crafting was fair, and the maps were perfect size. The base building, while unexpected, was fun, and the unlocking skills was worth the grind in my opinion. There's so much crammed into this game that it's kind of shocking once it lets you just go out into the world. Chernobylite is a good game with stellar visuals and a story filled with twists and turns. It's honestly a game that I'm going to recommend you guys pick up. And if you can't get into it right now, I would say pick it up on a sale. I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. I think you guys should play it. And that's the end of it. I hope you guys like that. This is Chernobylite. This is probably one of the longest, retrospectives I've done in a while. I hope you guys like it. Let me know in the comment section below. Remember, that secret word. If you've been paying attention, you know the secret word and you've already put it in the comments. Let me know what you guys think I should cover next, be it a retrospective or a review of a newer game. Let me know. I'm the Floor Hugger, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.